Daytime television survives on predictability. It thrives on comfort, warmth, controlled emotion, and carefully measured authenticity. Every smile is calibrated, every laugh timed, every segment designed to feel spontaneous while never actually being so. For years, The Kelly Clarkson Show perfected this balance, becoming a place where celebrities felt safe, vulnerable, human. It was never meant to be a battlefield. And yet, on one unexpected morning, the illusion collapsed. Zoe Saldana arrived at the studio carrying the weight of a career built on discipline, precision, and control. From global franchises to intimate dramatic performances, she had learned how to navigate massive expectations without losing herself. She was not known for chaos. She was known for preparation, for professionalism, for restraint, which is why what followed shocked everyone who thought they understood how these moments work. The segment was designed to celebrate success, upcoming projects, personal growth, creative evolution. Producers had framed the conversation around inspiration, resilience, and transformation. The lighting was warm, the set immaculate, the tone intentionally gentle. But beneath the surface, subtle fractures were already forming, invisible to the audience yet unmistakable to those who know how live television breathes. Zoe had spent years navigating conversations that simplified her identity, flattened her complexity, and reduced her career to sound bites. Questions that circled representation without depth. Narratives that celebrated visibility while ignoring nuance. She had answered them politely for years, choosing grace over confrontation, diplomacy over disruption. But pressure accumulates, silence compounds, and eventually, restraint becomes exhaustion. As the interview progressed, the atmosphere shifted almost imperceptibly. What began as admiration slowly edged into familiar territory, questions framed as praise yet carrying assumptions, reflections that echoed public talking points rather than lived experience. The kind of commentary that feels harmless to viewers but lands heavily on the person carrying decades of context. This is where the mechanics of television collide with the psychology of fame. Live broadcasts do not allow space for processing. There is no pause button for emotional accumulation. Each moment stacks upon the last, building momentum whether producers want it or not. Zoe felt the shift before anyone else did. Her posture changed, her energy tightened, the warmth faded into focus. Behind the cameras, producers sensed it too. The pacing changed, cue cards were adjusted, signals were sent through headsets. But live television does not reverse course easily. Once momentum tilts, it accelerates. What happened next wasn't a single explosive moment. It was a chain reaction. A collision between expectation and reality. Between curated kindness and raw honesty. Zoe stopped performing comfort. She stopped cushioning truth. And when that happens on daytime television, the system panics. The audience felt it instantly. Not because of shouting or spectacle, but because authenticity broke through the polished surface. Viewers are conditioned to sense when something real slips through the cracks. The energy in the room shifted from passive consumption to alert attention. This was no longer entertainment. This was tension. The production team moved quickly. Segments shortened, timelines compressed. Control room decisions became reactive instead of strategic. The show attempted to steer the conversation back toward safety, but safety had already been abandoned. Zoe wasn't attacking. She wasn't posturing. She was asserting boundaries that had long gone unacknowledged. And that is the moment daytime television fears the most, not aggression, but clarity. What followed was unprecedented for a show built on empathy. The decision was made not because of volume, but because of unpredictability. Not because of disrespect, but because control had been lost. Zoe was escorted off set, not as a punishment, but as a containment measure. A firewall, a reset. Within minutes, clips began circulating online. Edited fragments stripped of context, amplified by speculation. Headlines raced ahead of facts. Social media turned nuance into sides. The narrative splintered instantly, as it always does. Some called Zoe ungrateful, others called her courageous. Some blamed the show, others blamed celebrity ego, but very few discussed the machinery that failed in that moment, the system that invites authenticity only when it remains palatable. Behind the scenes, panic transformed into damage control. Publicists drafted statements. Network executives analyzed risk. Producers replayed footage frame by frame, searching for the exact second where containment failed. Everyone wanted a moment to blame. No one wanted to examine the structure itself. Zoe, meanwhile, disappeared from public view. No immediate statement, no defensive interview, no apology tour. Silence became her response, and in that silence, the story grew louder. Industry insiders understood the gravity immediately. This wasn't just a viral clip. This was a rupture in the unspoken contract between celebrity guests and daytime television, a reminder that emotional labor is still labor, and that even the most composed figures have limits. The show resumed the next day, smiling as always. The format remained intact. The music played. The warmth returned. But something subtle had changed. Viewers watched differently. Guests spoke more carefully. The illusion, once cracked, never fully reseals. Weeks later, the moment continued to echo. Think pieces emerged. Conversations shifted. Representation was discussed with more caution. Interviews became more self-aware. Not because the industry had transformed overnight, but because one moment had exposed the fault line beneath the polish. Zoe Saldana did not return to explain herself. She did not need to. Her career continued. Her work spoke. The incident became a footnote in her story, but a case study in television history. Because sometimes the most powerful disruption isn't loud. It's controlled. It's composed. And it happens when someone decides they are done shrinking themselves to fit a format that was never built to hold the full weight of truth. And that is the moment daytime television learned that even its safest stages are not immune to reality. The silence that followed did not cool the moment. It amplified it. In modern media, absence speaks louder than defense, and Zoe Saldana's refusal to immediately explain, justify, or soften what happened created a vacuum the internet rushed to fill. Narratives multiplied at a speed no publicist could outrun. Each platform reshaped the moment into something slightly different, yet all of them circled the same core truth. A system built on control had collided with a human boundary it could not contain. Daytime television is engineered like a machine. Every segment has a rhythm, a tempo, a safety margin. Producers measure emotion the way engineers measure voltage. Too little and the show feels sterile. Too much and it risks overload. For years, The Kelly Clarkson Show had mastered that balance, creating an environment where vulnerability felt authentic yet never destabilizing. But the Zoe Saldana moment exposed a flaw in that design. The system could invite honesty, but it could not sustain it once it exceeded a certain threshold. Inside network offices, the conversation shifted from surprise to strategy. Executives asked questions that were not about feelings but about liability, brand integrity, advertiser confidence, and audience trust. They analyzed the footage not as a human interaction but as a data point, dissecting pacing, camera angles, transitions, and the precise second where control slipped away. This was not cruelty. It was institutional reflex. Corporations survive by minimizing unpredictability. What made the incident uniquely destabilizing was its subtlety. There was no screaming, no obvious insult, no explosive visual that could be easily condemned. Instead, there was firmness, precision, emotional clarity. Those are harder to dismiss. Harder to frame as unprofessional. Harder to neutralize with a statement. Viewers sensed this instinctively. The viral spread wasn't driven by shock alone, but by recognition. People recognized the feeling of being politely misunderstood, of being praised while simultaneously boxed in, of being invited to speak only within invisible limits. Zoe's composure made the moment resonate beyond celebrity culture. It transformed a talk show segment into a mirror. The entertainment press initially framed the story as conflict. That framing didn't hold. As more viewers watched extended clips, slowed footage, and contextual breakdowns, the narrative evolved. Commentary shifted from, "What went wrong?" to, "Why does this keep happening?" Articles examined the emotional labor expected from public figures, especially women of color, especially those who are consistently labeled as gracious and grounded. The same traits that make them welcome guests also become expectations they are punished for violating. Behind the scenes, the show faced a quieter reckoning. Staff meetings were held, guidelines were reviewed, segment formats were reconsidered, not because the show believed it had acted maliciously, but because the incident revealed how easily good intentions can still cause harm when filtered through rigid structures. The question was not whether Zoe had crossed a line, but whether the line itself was flawed. Meanwhile, Zoe's career moved forward unaffected in ways that unsettled the industry.